I, 35F, never imagined my life would turn out like this. Growing up, I always dreamed of having a big family, but I never considered fostering or adoption. That all changed when I met my husband, Billy, 37M, in college. Billy had been in the foster system himself as a teenager, and he opened my eyes to the need for good foster parents. We got married right after graduation and started trying for kids immediately. It took us a few years, but we were blessed with our son, Sebastian, 14M, and daughter, Mila, 12F. After Mila was born, we struggled with secondary infertility. It was a difficult time for us, filled with failed treatments and dashed hopes. During that period, Billy suggested we look into fostering. At first, I was hesitant. I worried about getting attached to kids only to have them leave. But Billy's passion for helping kids in need won me over. We went through the training and became licensed foster parents 5 years ago. Our first placement was a set of twin boys, just 3 years old. They were only with us for 6 months before being reunited with their mom, but those months changed our lives. Seeing the positive impact we could have on these kids, even in a short time, was incredibly rewarding. Over the next few years, we fostered several more children for varying lengths of time. Some stays were as short as a weekend, others lasted months. Each child left a mark on our hearts. Sebastian and Mila were amazing through it all, welcoming each child with open arms. Then, about a year ago, we got a call about Annie, 16F. The social worker warned us that Annie was considered a problem child and had been through multiple placements. She had a history of running away and acting out. Many foster families had given up on her. Something about Annie's story tugged at my heart. I couldn't bear the thought of this girl being shuffled around the system with no one to truly care for her. Against the social worker's caution, we agreed to take Annie in. I'll never forget the day Annie arrived. She walked into our house with a scowl on her face, clutching a trash bag that held all her belongings. She wouldn't make eye contact or speak more than one-word answers. The social worker had warned us about Annie's anger issues, but all I saw was a scared, hurt child. The first few months with Annie were incredibly challenging. She would have explosive outbursts, screaming at us and breaking things. She'd lock herself in her room for days, refusing to come out even for meals. We'd leave trays of food outside her door, most of which went untouched. Sebastian and Mila were struggling too. Annie's behavior was disruptive to the whole household. There were times when Billy and I questioned if we were in over our heads. But every time we considered asking for Annie to be moved, I'd remember the look in her eyes that first day. That mix of fear and defiance that screamed, "I dare you to prove me right and give up on me too." So we persevered. We weathered the storms of Annie's anger, always trying to respond with patience and love, even when it was hard. Slowly, so slowly we almost didn't notice at first, things began to change. It started with small things. Annie would emerge from her room for family movie nights, though she'd sit apart from us. She stopped slamming doors quite so often. One day, I heard her laugh at one of Sebastian's corny jokes. The real turning point came about 6 months after Annie arrived. I was up late one night, unable to sleep. I heard a noise from the kitchen and went to investigate, finding Annie surrounded by broken glass. She had been trying to sneak a midnight snack and dropped a plate. When Annie saw me, she flinched back, clearly expecting to be yelled at or punished. Instead, I just asked if she was hurt and started cleaning up the glass. Annie stood frozen for a moment, then quietly began to help. As we cleaned, she started to cry. Through her tears, Annie told me about her past. How her birth parents had abused and neglected her. How previous foster families had treated her like a burden or a paycheck. How she had learned to push people away before they could hurt her first. We stayed up talking for hours that night. By the time the sun rose, something had shifted between us. It was like Annie finally realized we weren't going to give up on her, no matter what. From that point on, Annie's transformation was remarkable. She started engaging more with the family, joining us for meals and activities. Her grades improved as she actually started attending classes and doing homework. She even joined the school volleyball team. There are still difficult days, of course. Annie's past trauma doesn't just disappear. But now when she's struggling, she comes to us instead of shutting down. She's formed a special bond with Sebastian, often helping him with his homework or defending him from bullies at school. Mila looks up to Annie like the cool big sister she always wanted. Seeing Annie blossom and watching our family grow closer has been amazing. A few months ago, Billy and I started seriously discussing adoption. We want to give Annie the forever family she deserves. When we brought it up with Sebastian and Mila, they were thrilled at the idea of making Annie officially their sister. We decided to discuss our plans with our extended family before talking to Annie. We wanted to make sure she would be fully welcomed into the family. Most of our relatives were supportive, especially Billy's siblings who had seen firsthand the positive changes in Annie. However, my parents' reaction was deeply upsetting. When we told them we wanted to adopt Annie, my mom, 60F, asked if we were sure about taking on damaged goods. I was shocked speechless. Annie may have had a difficult past, but she's not damaged. She's a wonderful, resilient girl who deserves a loving family. My dad, 62NM, was even worse. He ranted about how Annie would ruin the family name and asked what people would think. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. These were my parents, the people who had raised me to be compassionate and caring. How could they be so cruel about an innocent child? I've always had a somewhat strained relationship with my parents. They're very traditional and have never quite approved of our decision to foster. But this felt like a whole new level of awfulness. Billy and I shut down the conversation and left, both of us furious and heartbroken. Now I'm at a loss for what to do. We haven't told Annie about our plans to adopt her yet. We want to make it special when we do ask her. But I'm worried about how my parents will treat her if we go through with the adoption. I don't want Annie to face rejection from people who are supposed to be her grandparents. Part of me wants to cut my parents off completely to protect Annie, but I'm worried about causing drama that could impact the adoption process. I also don't want to deprive Sebastian and Mila of a relationship with their grandparents, even though my parents' behavior has been awful. I'm torn between my desire to protect Annie and my reluctance to blow up my entire family. Should I confront my parents about their cruel comments? Try to educate them about Annie's past and the realities of foster care? Or just distance ourselves and hope they come around eventually? I know Annie deserves a family that will love and support her unconditionally. Billy, the kids, and I are ready to be that family. I just wish my parents could see what a wonderful person Annie is, instead of focusing on her past. Any advice on how to handle this situation would be greatly appreciated. Update 1. It's been about a month since my last post, and a lot has happened. First, I want to thank everyone for their supportive comments and advice. It really helped me gain perspective on the situation with my parents and Annie. After much discussion with Billy, we decided to confront my parents about their comments regarding Annie. And we invited them over for dinner without the kids present. I spent days preparing what I wanted to say, trying to find the right words to make them understand. When they arrived, things were tense from the start. My mom brought a casserole, acting as if nothing was wrong. My dad barely grunted a hello. We managed to get through dinner with stilted small talk, but as soon as the plates were cleared, I knew it was time. I took a deep breath and told them plainly how hurtful and unacceptable their words about Annie had been. I explained that Annie is a part of our family now, and if they can't treat her with love and respect, they won't be welcome in our lives. My mom tried to backpedal, claiming she was just concerned about us taking on such a big responsibility. She went on about how teenagers are difficult even without trauma, and how she was worried we were in over our heads. I reminded her of all the challenges we'd already overcome with Annie, how much progress she'd made. I told her about Annie making honor roll, about her talent for art, about the way she looks out for Sebastian and Mila. I hoped that hearing about the real Annie, not just their preconceived notions, might change their minds. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of understanding in my mom's eyes. But then my dad spoke up, and any hope I had vanished. He doubled down on his previous statements, saying some truly vile things about Annie's background and how she would corrupt Sebastian and Mila. I've never seen Billy so angry. His own experiences in foster care made my dad's words especially hurtful. Billy told my dad in no uncertain terms that he needed to leave our house and not come back until he could treat our daughter with respect. My parents left in a huff, my mom crying and my dad red-faced with anger. After they were gone, Billy and I had a long emotional discussion. We decided that for Annie's safety and well-being, we needed to go low contact with my parents for now. We're not cutting them off completely, but we're limiting interactions and they won't be allowed unsupervised time with any of the kids. It was a difficult decision, especially knowing how it might affect Sebastian and Mila's relationship with their grandparents. But Annie has to be our priority. She's been hurt by too many adults in her life already. We won't let her be hurt by people who are supposed to love her. On a happier note, we finally asked Annie if she wanted us to adopt her. We took her out for a special dinner, just the three of us. We went to this little Italian place where we had taken her for her birthday a few months ago. Annie had mentioned it was the first time she'd ever been to a real restaurant. When the waiter brought out dessert, we had them write, "Will you be our daughter?" in chocolate sauce on the plate. When Annie saw it, she froze for a moment, her eyes wide. Then she burst into tears. For a terrifying second, I thought we had made a mistake. But then Annie launched herself across the table, hugging us both and saying yes, over and over. She told us she had been hoping we'd ask, but was afraid to bring it up herself, worried that she was just a temporary part of our lives like with every other family. It was such an emotional moment for all of us. Billy and I reassured Annie that she didn't need to thank us. We're the lucky ones to have her in our lives. We told her how much we love her and how proud we are to call her our daughter. When we got home and told Sebastian and Mila that Annie had said yes, they were over the moon. They've been calling her their sister from day one, but now it's going to be official. Sebastian immediately started planning a welcome to the family officially party, while Mila asked if Annie could help her redecorate her room to be more big girl, like Annie's. The next day, we had a family meeting to discuss the situation with my parents. We explained in age-appropriate terms that Grandma and Grandpa had said some unkind things, so we wouldn't be seeing them as much for a while. The kids were understandably confused and upset. Annie blamed herself at first, saying maybe it would be better if she left so we didn't have problems with my parents. It broke my heart to hear her say that. We reassured her over and over that it wasn't her fault at all, that we chose her and we'd choose her every time. Sebastian surprised us all by saying that if Grandma and Grandpa couldn't accept Annie, he didn't want to see them either. Mila agreed, saying Annie was her sister no matter what anyone said. Billy and I were so proud of their loyalty and love for their sister. We told them they could still have a relationship with their grandparents if they wanted, but they insisted they were Team Annie all the way. We're starting the official adoption process now and hope to finalize everything within the next 6 months. There's a lot of paperwork and home visits ahead, but knowing that at the end of it, Annie will legally be our daughter makes it all worthwhile. As for extended family, my sister Kate, 33F, has been incredibly supportive. When I told her what happened with our parents, she was furious on our behalf. Kate has really stepped up as a fun aunt figure for Annie. She takes all 3 kids out for cousin days and makes sure Annie feels included. There have been some bumps in the road as we navigate this new family dynamic. Annie still has days where she struggles with her past trauma, but she's opening up to us more and more. Last week, she came to me in tears after a nightmare. It broke my heart to hear some of what she's been through, but I'm glad she feels safe enough now to share with us. We're taking things one day at a time, focusing on building our family bond. The adoption process is moving forward and we're cautiously optimistic. I'll update again when we have more news. Thank you all again for your support and advice during this challenging but rewarding time. Update 2. It's been about 3 months since my last update. The adoption process is moving along, though not as quickly as we'd hoped. There's been a lot of paperwork and home visits. Annie has been a trooper through it all, but I can tell the uncertainty is wearing on her. We've had some issues with my parents trying to force contact. They've shown up unannounced at our house a few times. The first time, Annie had a panic attack. She was convinced we were going to send her away. It took hours to calm her down and reassure her that she's not going anywhere. After that incident, Billy and I decided to get a restraining order against my parents. It was a hard decision, but Annie's well-being has to come first. The day we went to court for the restraining order was tough. Seeing my parents there, my mom crying and my dad glaring at us, brought up a lot of complicated emotions. But then I remembered how terrified Annie had been, and I knew we were doing the right thing. The kids were upset at first when we explained about the restraining order, especially Mila. She's always been close to my mom and had a hard time understanding why she couldn't see her grandmother. We've been trying to arrange for the kids to have phone calls with my parents, supervised by us, but it's been challenging. On a more positive note, Annie has really been thriving lately. Her grades have continued to improve and she made the honor roll this term. Her art teacher told us Annie has real talent and suggested we look into summer art programs for her. Annie was over the moon when we signed her up for a local art camp. Sebastian and Annie have gotten especially close. He's been having some trouble with bullies at school, and Annie has become fiercely protective of her little brother. Last week, she marched right up to the main bully and read him the riot act. The principal called us in, but once we explained the situation, Annie didn't get in any trouble. I was so proud of her for standing up for Sebastian. Mila has been struggling a bit with all the changes. She's always been our baby, and I think she's feeling a bit left out with all the focus on Annie lately. Billy and I have been making an effort to have special one-on-one time with each of the kids to make sure no one feels neglected. Last weekend, I took Mila for a girls' day of shopping and ice cream. It was nice to spend some quality time with her. We had a scary moment last month when Annie got really sick with pneumonia. She had to be hospitalized for a few days. The social worker warned us that this could potentially delay the adoption process, but thankfully, everything seems to be back on track now. While Annie was in the hospital, my mom tried to visit. The nurses thankfully stopped her, but Annie was really shaken up. It led to her finally opening up to us about some of the abuse she suffered in previous foster homes. She told us about one family that would lock her in a closet for days as punishment. Another would withhold food if she didn't do her chores perfectly. It was heartbreaking to hear, but I'm glad she felt safe enough to share with us. After Annie was released from the hospital, we had a family movie night. As we all cuddled on the couch watching Annie's favorite film, I looked around at my family. Sebastian was explaining some plot point to Mila, who was half asleep on Billy's shoulder. Annie was curled up next to me, laughing at the movie. In that moment, despite all the challenges we faced, I felt so incredibly grateful for this life we've built. We're continuing to take things day by day. There are still challenges, but seeing how our family has come together to support each other makes it all worth it. Annie calls us mom and dad now, which never fails to make me tear up. We're hoping to have good news about finalizing the adoption soon. Update 3. I can't believe it's been 6 months since my last update. So much has happened, I hardly know where to begin. The biggest news is that Annie's adoption is finally official. We had the court hearing last week, and there wasn't a dry eye in the room when the judge declared us a forever family. The day of the hearing was a whirlwind of emotions. Annie was so nervous that morning she could barely eat breakfast. As we drove to the courthouse, she kept fidgeting with her new dress, a gift from Aunt Kate for the occasion. Billy held her hand the whole time we waited for our case to be called. When the judge asked Annie if she wanted to be adopted by us, her voice was shaky but clear as she said, "Yes, more than anything." I couldn't hold back my tears as the judge signed the papers and announced that Annie was officially our daughter. We all hugged right there in the courtroom, even Sebastian, who usually thinks he's too cool for public displays of affection. We threw a big party to celebrate. All our friends and supportive family members came. Our house was packed with people who wanted to congratulate Annie and welcome her to the family. Annie was beaming the whole time, going from person to person thanking them for coming. She gave a little speech thanking us for giving her a home and a family. I don't think I've ever been so proud. The party wasn't without drama, though. My parents tried to crash despite the restraining order. Billy's brother Mike, 40M, saw them coming and managed to head them off before they could cause a scene. We're so grateful for how protective our family has been of Annie. Sebastian and Mila have really stepped up as big brother and little sister. They've been so patient on the days when Annie struggles. Last month, Annie had a major meltdown on the anniversary of a traumatic event from her past. Sebastian and Mila just sat with her, not saying anything, just being there. It meant the world to her. We've had some growing pains as we adjust to being a family of 5. Annie is still working through some of her past trauma. She has nightmares sometimes and struggles with trusting that we won't abandon her. But she's making progress every day. Annie's art has really taken off. Her paintings were featured in a local student art show, and one even sold. She was so excited to earn her own money from something she created. We're looking into more advanced art classes for her. Sebastian had his first school dance last week. Annie helped him pick out an outfit and gave him advice on talking to his crush. It was so sweet to see them bonding over typical teenage stuff. Mila has discovered a passion for soccer. Annie and Sebastian have been great about attending her games and cheering her on. Seeing all 3 kids support each other in their various activities has been amazing. We still haven't heard from my parents since the failed attempt to crash the adoption party. It's been hard, especially around holidays, but we're focusing on the family we've chosen. Billy's siblings and my sister Kate have been wonderful, making sure the kids don't feel like they're missing out on extended family. There are still challenges ahead, I'm sure. But watching Annie blossom into a confident, happy teenager has been the most rewarding experience of my life. Billy and I are tired but happier than ever. We're so grateful that we took a chance on fostering and ended up with such an amazing addition to our family.